Alright, so how y'all doing? Come back out here again today. Gonna make another video on this old Moline. In this video, I hope to put the valve covers on, try to get that drawbar finished up. I gotta make some spacers out of some steel, so I hope I can get that done. Last video, got the new carburetor on, got the radiator on, temporary, got the front wheels on, got it running better. I think was about it. Off camera, I fixed the seat. If you guys remember, the old spring was busted. I took that new spring, cut a chunk out of it, so now kind of got a little bit of cushion. It's not really heavy enough. I need a tougher spring. I don't know where I could get one of those at, but that's what it needs. But I'm gonna try to get these valve covers on real fast, and I'll be back. One thing that I did on the valve covers is I silicone the gaskets to them, so that way I can take these off and on without dropping the gasket or tearing the gasket. I'm not going to silicone it to the block. I'm just going to leave it like this, and it should still pretty good. Alright, so there's one of them. These bolts right here actually work. I think these are 2.5, so 3/8. So those work pretty good. And then my new gasket set, it come with new crush washers or crush gaskets to seal the holes up. So I'm gonna get these other ones on. This other one on. It's kind of tricky because you gotta kind of feel the bolt, if that makes any sense. So I'm gonna get this other one on, and I'll be back. So I'm fixing to tighten these up, but one thing to remember, don't over tighten these, because you got that cork gasket. You just want to kind of snug it up. That's all you want to do, snug it up. You're not going crazy. It's not holding a rod. You just want to snug them up. Especially because these seals are made out of paper or a hardened substance of some sort. So I really don't know what they're made out of. Alright, valve covers are installed. So I'm going to start working on the hitch now. I've got to remake one of these. And I mean, I wouldn't have to remake it, but this one's, as you can see, it's kind of not around anymore. So, and it's broke out of this. It used to be welded, in there. But so basically what I've got to do, make a new one of these, open this back up again where this will fit in there, and then burn it in from this side. I think this side was actually the weld, and that side went up in the transmission. But they broke this thing out. I think they were pulling a hay baler with it or something. If anyone knows how a hay baler does, you'll know that it really puts your drawbars through it. So that's probably what happened. They probably had a hay baler hooked to it. That constant ram of the hay baler probably wore everything out, loosened the bolts up, broke this, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to get started making that, and I'll be back. Alright, so I've been out here working on this hitch. Here's what I got so far. I got 2 of these cut off. These are 3/4, right at 3/4. So I got to get some holes in these. I'm going to go ahead and make 4 of these, 2 for the drawbar attachment point, and then 2 for the drawbar slide. So, and all I did to these is cut them with the chop saw, and then took them in here and faced them, and then got them down to the right size. So, I'm going to get this started. I'll be back. Alright, well, after some chips later, here we go. I just got to make 3 more of them, but that'll work pretty good to space out that hitch. So, I'm going to go ahead and whip up the other 3, and I'll be back. Alright, well, after many hours of work, and one gigantic mess later, I've got 4 spacers, and I got a new hitch pin put in. Here's the old worn out one. I actually found a piece of scrap laying around. It was about that long, so it worked out great. 1 inch thick. I went ahead and just welded it on the top too, because when I got that new pin in there, there was about a maybe 1/8 inch gap where the old one had been loose so long it had wallered the original hole. So I just went on ahead and got this as centered as I possibly could. It's not true to what I would like it to be, but it's close enough to where once it gets started and I get the bolts in there, it should be just fine. But I made these. They're a little over 3/4, which should work just fine for the drawbar. The drawbar is 5/8, so it should give it plenty of wiggle room. So I'm gonna go put these on, and we'll see how they fit. Alright, so here I am laying under the tractor. I've got my drawbar kind of stuck in there. Got my new pieces back. So everything looks good. The only thing that I run into was on my weld in here. When I done that, I was thinking maybe the drawbar would have enough wear to where it wouldn't matter. And it still doesn't matter. I got plenty of clearance. When I tighten those bolts up, it ain't gonna hit or anything. But you know, it could have been worse than it was. Just something to remember in the future. When you think one thing, make sure you check. But it wouldn't have really amounted to anything. I could have took a grinder and, you know, took it down if I just necessarily had to. But I think it'll be just fine. I am going to have to pull the drawbar back out and flip it around, and I'll show you why in a second. Alright, so as you can see, in that drawbar's bent. It's bent down. It bends down anyway, but it's really bent down right here. So I don't know if that's a factory thing or what, or I don't know if it just, the tractor that's come off of it got bent really bad. But I thought it was supposed to go this way because I've got a book, a teardown manual. That's where I was coming up and seeing what it had back here. But on that teardown manual, it showed the drawbar, and I thought this was something someone welded on, but the one in the manual had that, so I don't know what that's for. But they had it flipped around like that, so I just assumed, hey, you know, it's supposed to be that way around, but I'm gonna flip it around the other way. So I don't know what that's for. If anyone out there knows what that, it almost looks like a piece of key stock, and it's factory welded on here. I don't know what that was for. If anyone out there knows, let me know. But everything works really good. Slides, got plenty of clearance. I can get my you know, my locking pins in where I need it. You know, you got plenty of adjustment. Put it all the way to the side. Put a pin. Put it all the way to the side. Put a pin. So everything will work just fine like it's supposed to with those homemade spacers. But I'm going to go ahead and flip this drawbar around, and I'll be back. Alright, so I just pulled the drawbar out, and I just had a thought as to why that piece of key is welded on there. If you notice, this drawbar has two holes. It's got a slotted hole. It's got a solid hole. I think the slotted hole is made for a hay baler. So you got a little bit of, you know, slop back and forth, because the hay baler, when it's got that motion, it gives it a little bit of play. Well, when I pulled that piece out, you can imagine you're going to be sliding this heavy drawbar forward. Well, if you mess up and slide too far, it's going to come out of this track. So, with that key on there, it can't go all the way out. It's going to hit that before it's going to slide all the way through this opening. So that's what I think that's there for. Is so you don't accidentally pull the drawbar all the way out while you're changing it over to this slot. That's just a theory of mine. I don't know how true that is, but that's the only good explanation I can come up with right now. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this thing around, put it back in there. I'll be back. Alright, so I got the drawbar put back in. Got it flipped around the other way. It's definitely a lot better. And it also tightened it up quite a bit. It's not floppy anymore. It's kind of floating there now. So that'll wear in though. It'll be okay. That's just from those welds. But it's not loose. It's not too tight. It's just perfect. So, and I do think my theory on that is correct, because when I was trying to get the pin put back in, I jerked a little bit and it slid uncontrollably. So I don't know if that's what that's for, but I'm going to say it is. But what I think I'm going to try to do is start pulling these studs out, because with the new rims I won't need studs. So I think I'm going to try to get these studs out. I'm going to have probably an easier time on that side, because there's already like 3 of those out. On this side it's going to be more tricky, because you can see they're wore down pretty good. These may not be an issue, but the ones that were in the rustiest part, like that one, I had to cut a slot in it. He's pretty rough. So I'm going to try to start working on those, getting those hopefully ready to go, but we'll just have to see. This side won't be as big of a deal, because you can still see the thread sticking out. Actually, that's the one I took out. Never mind. You can see they're just dirty. They just have dust on them. So, and a couple of them are rusty. Like that one's got some rust, but I think it'll be a little bit easier on this side. So I think that's what I'm gonna start working on. Alright, so here's a method of removing studs that I found it works good. 2 nuts. Basically, you run them on your stud. You tighten the one up as high as you can get it. You run the other one on there, tighten it up as tight as you can get it. Take 2 wrenches and you basically jam them. What that does is, and then, oh, I'm going too far. Then you turn the inside one, and it breaks it loose. What that does, the outside one keeps the inside one from turning. So to overcome that, it's either going to break it or come out. So that's what I've been doing to get these studs out of here. And I got one out, and I'm already up pretty good, but I'm not using these studs again. I'm just going to put bolts back, because I'm not using those clevises. So with those loops, just plain old bolts work just fine. So I'm going to keep slowly getting these things out, and I'll be back. Alright, so after about an hour, I got all the studs out of it. I even got the two that I had to cut or slice to get the nuts off, so I was pretty amazed. They actually were the easiest ones to get out. See, I got this side out too. This was the hardest side. I thought that side over there was going to be the hardest, but it was actually this side. So I moved on to this hub right here. When we got this tractor, it had that one on that side and had a solid steel rim on this side with the center and the cast iron hub with the lug nuts. So we had this center with a wheel on it, and we didn't have the big cast iron clamp, but my dad took an old plow bearing cap and, you know, cut some slots in it, modified it, and took a U-bolt. I think this is off of like a Chevrolet truck or whatever we had, and some nuts, and he made that work. And it worked. It don't look as good as the original. So what I'm gonna do, we got that iron wheel one. It's missing one of these, so I'm gonna put this on the iron wheel one. And I bought the U-bolt and the bearings over there, or the clamp piece. But it's for an R. And if you guys don't know, an R axle is smaller, so it's fitting, but it's not quite tightening up. So I'm gonna have to modify that, and I'll show you guys that in a second. Alright, so here's the R bearing shell, or bearing, I keep calling it a bearing, clamp piece. And as you can see, it's not quite clearing there. And you can see the gap there and in there. So basically what I'm going to have to do is take material out of the sides of it. Now I'm going to leave the center because that's where it's going to be clamping down the most, and looking at it, it's going to clear in there if I just take it down to where the center of the shaft is touching the center of the clamp. So I'm just going to have to keep taking material out of it now. The proper way of doing this is probably bore it. I don't really know how you do that, but like line bore it. But I do not have the means to do that, so angle grinder have to do it, which I think it'll still be stronger than that, which that was pretty strong, but it was just ugly. And not to mention you got this big old U-bolt, and the U-bolt does fit. If I can get it in there. Of course, that's not the right way, it goes the other way, but it does fit the hole. So this shell has the meat, because it looks just like the one on the other side. Just that inside circle is smaller. So I'm going to start shaping that and hopefully I can get it to fit. Alright, so you're probably wondering right now, what are you doing? Why'd you put that back on? Well, it's simple. See how strong that is? It was just a core, and this whole top tank was flopping back and forth. I don't want to break that $450 radiator, because you know that ain't exactly, to me, cheap. So I just put the covers back on, just on the front, just to give this some stability. I was going to cut some wood and run down the sides, down the front, and I stuck these up here. And I was thinking to myself, if I'm sticking this up here, just go bolt it on. So I just bolted it on. It's just primer. Shouldn't hurt anything too bad. I can always wipe it off. But I've been working on this bearing half, and I've got it fitting pretty good now. You know, the gap's closed up. It's slid in there. Professionally milled, you know. But it should work. I mean, there's a little bit of a gap there, but I think I might can either turn something down on the lathe to take that space up, or just not worry about it and tighten it. I don't know yet. I'm a little worried about just tightening it down. I'm afraid this cast iron might go and break in half, but I don't think it will. If it gives trouble in the future, I can always do something different. But I'm going to keep grinding it. I've still got a little bit of a gap. I got to take some off these sides here, but I don't see no problem with it. It is smaller than the original one. I was comparing them, and then the original one's like that much thicker. So it's kind of like a cut down version of that side. It's about, you know, a good ½ inch of material non-existent on this cast than the one on the other side, but it should still do the job when I grind it down. So I'm gonna keep working on this, and I'll be back. Alright, so I've got it fitting up as good as I can get it. I do have the nuts semi-tight. I didn't go crazy. But I've got to turn down some spacers to go in there, about 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to use these pieces of stock here. This side's true. I just got to turn this side down where it was cut with a saw. And I got to cut these, cut it down to 3/8. You guys can't see. Cut it down to 3/8, right about there. And that should work. I'm not going to worry too much about the inside. It is a little big, but I just want to get something in there, because I know this is cast, and I can already see this cracking in half and basically being loose. So I want to get something in there to support this so that doesn't happen. I may have to turn it down just a touch small to where it'll fit and be tight, but I do want to get it tight enough to where it'll flex just a little bit to take up that space and tighten it up. So I'm going to get started machining those, and I might show the process depending on how difficult it becomes, but if not, you'll see them done. So I'll be back. Alright, so about an hour later, I got my 3/8 by 3/8 spacers. So them ought to work pretty good. So tomorrow I'm going to go back over there and put those on and see if I got to tweak them any. See you then. Alright, so it's the next day. As you can see, I got my spacers, and they do have a little bit of play in them. So I'm going to see what it does when I tighten these down. I may have to take some more off of the cast to get that to completely close up, but I don't know. We'll just have to see. So I'm going to start tightening these nuts down, and we'll see what happens. Alright, well, I tightened it down, and it seems to have worked. They're tight, and they're not moving anymore, so it shrunk. It was able to shrink, so it's exactly what I wanted it to do. So there's no gap. And it's not super tight on those either, so they're doing their job. And all the pressure's on that, so I'm hoping it'll keep this from wanting to slide off. I've seen some tractors, they have a bolt and a big washer on the end of the axle, but I don't think this one has the threads in it, so I won't be able to put that on there for extra safety. But one less thing. Alright, so I'm trying to come up with a alternator for this tractor, because I'm not going to go back with the generator. I don't know how we can see there or not, but there's a hole right there. And it just so happens that an alternator would set right there on that hole. And the pulley almost would line up with that bottom pulley. I think I could space it out though, but I'm not going to be using this alternator. This is just a stand-in. I'll be getting a 1-wire for this, but there's a hole right there. It goes all the way through the cast. It would almost work. Put a bolt through there, maybe make a little tang piece to set back here to support that on this one stud. Run a 3/8 bolt all the way through, and that would I'd put an alternator on it. Pretty simple. And you just run your bracket back to your fan piece for adjustment or something. Come up with something. That's where the generator was anyway. Alright, so I got the tank and the hood thrown back on here, mainly because I want to see if I can get this hood to fit any better, because the first video I made on it, I had the hood just throw it on here for temporary, and the air cleaner was like right here hitting, and then the muffler was the same story. Everything was too far back, basically. The hood holes were too far back, and I originally thought it was because the radiator had been hit and it kind of had pushed it back and thrown these off, but this is actually bent, I think, or something's bent about it, so that's why it was that way. And then the muffler is just, it's just wrong, so I have to fix that muffler. But I thought I'd throw it up on here just to see if I could make it fit any better. And it is bent pretty bad. The hood's bent pretty bad. All the corners have been, you can see that's a snap. There's a crack there. There's another crack right there. These were folded under and still kind of springy, but ain't really much I can do about it. I'm gonna try to get the waves out of it as much as I can. Same thing on this side, except it's actually fitting pretty close, but it's still curved out, as you can see. And then right up here you can see it's kinked where there's supposed to be a nice smooth curve, so I'm gonna have to do some hammer and dolly work in there to get that out. And this side is the same as the other side over there. Cracks, and this was bent. That's been broke off and bolted back on. So you can see it's kind of thin right here where it's been rubbing the gas tank. Probably what I'll do when I put this back together is get some kind of strip and glue it on the underside of the hood where it won't rub my tank. But I wanted to throw it on here and try to make it fit better, so I'm not scratching my nicely primed or painted gas tank up. Now, I am scratching that up, but it's not really a big deal. It's just cast iron. Paint will hide it. I took this old dealer tag off, like a tractor farm supply tag. It's got a lot of neat stuff on there. I'm thinking about putting it back on, but it went right there. And so there's the original paint. Still actually kind of shiny. I wish the whole tractor looked like that. I'd leave it alone. But kind of got a sample of the color. But yeah, I'm thinking about putting that back on there. I think that's pretty cool. Kind of a piece of its history. Where it came from, you know. I did say the tractor was from South Carolina. It does say on there Columbia, South Carolina is one of the spots, so I'm assuming that's where it came from. I don't know. But anyway, I think that's kind of neat. that it has that on there, but yeah. Hood's got a little bit of rust on the underside of this cover right in there. Some pretty bad looking spots where it's eating through, so I'm gonna have to try to beat that out of there and seal it where that won't come back and be a problem for the future. But other than that, I mean, it's a hood. I've got it. So, and I don't know if it's supposed to have an extra strap for the gas tank. I know ours do, and you'd think if an R had it, a Z would have it, but I'm not seeing anywhere on here where it would have had one. It does have oblong holes, and it does have this hole right here, but it's only on this side it has that hole, so I don't know if it came out with it or not. But with the tank, with the hood off, the tank's loose. So I don't, like I said, I don't know. I don't know if that's factory or not. Alright, so I've done a little changing. As you can see, I put the throttle lever on the other side of the steering wheel. I don't know if it's supposed to be that way, but here's why I did that. When you go to put it in, I think that's reverse, which is straight back, or first or second, straight forward. You hit your hand on the throttle, because it was over here, and the throttle hit the top of the knob. Now my solution for that was to make a longer throttle linkage and have the knob be maximum forward, be right about here, which would give clearance, but you'd still be rubbing your hand on the underside of this throttle. Well, then I thought, there's nothing stopping you from flipping this around, so that's what I've done. I flipped this around to the other side. I'm still going to have to make a new linkage, because I don't know if the linkage I've got come off of another style tractor or what the deal is, but you can see the tip doesn't come all the way out, and there is a hole drilled in it for a cotter pin. So on the new one, I'm going to have to do a little bit of bending to clear the underside of the steering wheel. I think it's clearing it right now, but I'll try to bend it more this way inside. But it does work pretty good. That's would be wide open right now. That's idle. You can see it's got plenty of clearance, so even with the old crappy piece stuck on there for now, it's working pretty good. So I think I'm gonna leave it like that. And I did check, it does clear the fenders, so it's not in the way of the fenders. I don't know if it come out that way. I don't know if someone flipped it around the other way. I don't really know. So, but I think it works a lot better on that side. Doesn't interfere with anything. You're not going to hit it getting on or off the tractor, so everything should be good. But I'm going to go ahead and make up a new linkage, drill some new cotter pins and washers, stuff like that. Make it feel a little bit better down here. So I'm going to get started doing that. I'll be back. Alright, I got my new throttle rod made up. Got it run up there. Works pretty good. Opens up completely. Doesn't rub anything, as you can see. So before, when it was on the other side, it was rubbing the side of the gas tank there. So, and I think it was also hitting the steering wheel shaft. Like I said, I don't think it was supposed to be on the other side, because it hit the gear shift knob. You go to put it in reverse, and your hand would hit the throttle. I do have it kind of too far back, but when you're sitting in the seat, you can, you got plenty of reach instead of having to reach it like way down here. So I think that's about right. I did have to put a little bend in it right there to make it come down to clear the steering shaft, and I might put another bend maybe right about here just to kick it that way. But other than that, I think it's pretty good. So I'm going to keep doing a little bit more. I'll be back. Alright, I made a kink in it right there. So it's a little bit better, a little bit tighter. Comes back a little further, don't go back quite as far as it did before, so that's about perfect. So I'm going to go on ahead and end this video here. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.